all, Jasper here, and I've come to realize I'm really shit at this whole YouTube thing. Been at this for over 4 years, and I haven't even reached 4,000 subs. That's 1,000 subs a year. Yet there are plenty of creators who've been massively more successful than I am in far less time. So clearly, I'm doing something wrong here. Now I could look into myself, watch my videos, and see what I'm lacking and what can be improved on. But that takes way too much work. So instead, I'm just going to steal some of the best performing videos from other channels and use those ideas. And who better to start out with than easily my favorite Game of Thrones channel, Glidus. Or Glidus. Glidus? Never did figure that out. Let's see what his most viewed video is. Fuck that. Did I say Glidus was my favorite Game of Thrones channel? I actually meant the fandom, which is quite poetic because they have already stolen 2 videos from me at least. And what hurts more is they both did so much better than mine. Now, their highest performing video is how Robb and the Starks could have won the Game of Thrones. Pretty good, and it's a pretty easy video topic because, let's face it, Robb makes a lot of mistakes that can easily be changed, which can definitely tip the balance in his favor. And I'm not going to go crazy, like saying that Robb should send a boat to offer Dany a marriage alliance or some terrible fanfiction like that. Let's stay in the realm of reasonable possibility, okay? And after I'm done with this, I'll take a refresher view on the fandom's video and see if there was something I missed, which is unlikely, and what they got wrong, which is guaranteed, and comment on that. Ready? Well, then let's begin. Oh, real fast before I forget, I actually did speak to Liam and get his blessing on tackling this video. He wanted me to make sure that you all knew, though, that he does plan on remaking this video. So that's right, all, 200 of you who are going to watch this video? Just so you know, he's planning on remaking this shit video, okay? Well, obviously we should tackle Robb's biggest blunders in chronological order, and the first one is what he does with Jaime Lannister after capturing him. Many think he should kill him, but I am of the personal opinion that he should not kill him. Yet. I am of the opinion that Robb Stark should instead organize a prisoner exchange, Jaime for Sansa and Arya. This is brought up in the books as an option, but dismissed as Jaime is considered too valuable to exchange for 2 little girls. But here's the thing, I recall Robb even relents that he made the wrong choice in the books, as he talks about the possibility of organizing marriages between Sansa and others to bring in more allies, such as Willis Tyrell. How effective this would work, actually, is debatable, since a sister to the King of the North isn't quite as nice as the King to the Iron Throne itself. But it honestly does not matter, as the Lannisters do not have the 2 daughters to exchange. Granted, they have Sansa, who would be the more important one, but Robb cannot agree to such terms and thus would need to execute Jaime in response. Such a big change could have large cascading events that are difficult to predict. For example, Sansa very well could be executed in response to this. Joffrey was already having her beaten due to Robb's rebellion. Executing Jaime very well could seal her fate. Though the sad fact is, while that is terrible, it doesn't put Robb in a worse position. If anything, it puts him in a better position because now the Lannisters don't have anyone's life they could threaten Robb with, except lying about how they still have Arya's star. Now, his second biggest mistake, and some would say his biggest blunder of all, sending Theon to parley with his father Balon Greyjoy. Now, I don't blame Robb at all for this action, as it makes perfect sense. If anyone else were in Balon's shoes, they likely would have taken the deal. The problem is that Balon has the IQ level below the room temperature of an ice rink, and of course not only turns down a lucrative alliance that could help him achieve his goals, but also makes an enemy of everyone on the continent. Though I don't think this decision is quite as bad as everyone thinks it is. Regardless of who Robb sends, Balon is going to launch his attack. The man was a fool, blinded by his hatred of Eddard and thus the Starks, and prioritized his petty revenge even at the cost of his son's life. After all, said son was raised more by the Starks than himself. Had Robb sent someone else, the results would have been exactly the same. Balon was already preparing to launch an attack against the west coast of the north. Though, that isn't to say Robb didn't mess up by sending Theon. He did, and it's for one main reason. Theon, with some bullshit Deus Ex Machina, takes the massive fortress of Winterfell with 20 guys? A castle that large likely has a population of hundreds of men who could fight, even if they were not trained guards or soldiers. Is this like 40k where I need to add a 0 to the end of numbers to make it more logical? Anyways, while not sending Theon doesn't prevent the Ironborn from attacking the north, it does at least spare the castle of Winterfell and the moral impact that had on Robb and his forces. I mean, if I heard that a different country showed up and just ransacked the capital of my country, I'd feel pretty demoralized about that. Though, to be fair, the people of Venezuela don't seem to be bothered by it, so who knows? It also helps Robb keep his vows, as it was the supposed loss of his brothers that caused him to sleep with Jane Westerling, which made him decide to break his betrothal to the Freys and lose their support. This was the domino that caused everything to begin crumbling around Robb. If Theon stays by his side, Winterfell isn't sacked, and he holds on to the support of the Freys. Though if Robb doesn't send Theon, he has to deal with a new decision. Does he execute Theon? It's hard to say, and I could see it going either way. Robb did his best to emulate his father, and if Eddard was in his shoes, I have little doubt that ice would have been unsheathed to take his head. But Robb isn't Eddard. Jon Snow seemed pretty confident that if he ran away from the Night's Watch and met Robb in secret, he wouldn't be executed and be allowed to help and assist. So, maybe he lets Theon live. I would even argue it's best to keep Theon alive, as Theon could be used to undermine Balon's power. Robb could arrange a marriage between Theon and a powerful house of the Iron Islands that could cause some turmoil, or offer him to other powerful families for their support. How that would work is a bit dicey. I don't see Mace Tyrell agreeing to this, or Dorne Martell with their daughters, what with Mace getting to have his daughter marry the King of Westeros compared to the King of the Iron Islands. Unless, of course, he drooled at the idea of being King of the Reach. Doran has his own plans, but since he wouldn't be able to marry his daughter to the Viserys like he planned originally, maybe Theon would be enticing for his own goals in the long run to bring the Targaryens back to power. Other smaller but still powerful houses can be persuaded, particularly in the Vale. Maybe House Royce or the Graftons could be persuaded to join, and their power rivals that of the Freys, so their support could not be underestimated. So a topic that probably should be mentioned, which some people consider a mistake, is Robb becoming king in the north, and would have been better had he declared for Stannis so that the two could orchestrate attacks more effectively together. Here's the thing, Robb was already orchestrating his plans with Stannis in mind, even if they were not communicating directly, as he wanted to draw Tywin west so he wouldn't have been able to defend King's Landing when Stannis attacked. His actual blunder, and in my eyes the biggest blunder, was not telling Edmure Tully his overarching plan. Now we can debate and argue on who is more at fault, as Edmure was told not to engage Tywin, but still chose to do so as he felt an opportunity arose. But as a wise grasshopper once said,
"First rule of leadership: everything is your fault."
Not everyone needs to know every detail of your plan, as the more who hear about it, the more likely the Lannisters could find out about it. But sure as shit, the guy in charge of half your strength should be told in detail why you are giving him these orders. If Edmure was told, he wouldn't have attacked, and Stannis possibly would have taken King's Landing, which would have been a massive blow to the Lannisters and cost Robb little to nothing. A mistake I want to bring up, which is something I don't see really anyone ever talk about, is Robb Stark not defending the western coast, or at least not defending it to the extent that he should. This isn't even because of the Ironborn invasion, but entirely because of the Lannisters. The only way the Lannisters could effectively attack the north would be to sail ships around and attack the western coast, as marching through the Riverlands and attacking Moat Cailin is a suicide mission. The eastern coast is pretty safe though, because the Lannister fleet would take longer to sail all the way around Westeros to attack the east. The royal fleet was taken by Stannis, so the Crown Lands can't launch an attack from the east, and House Manderley's in that location, and while their fleet isn't massive by any stretch of the imagination, it would at least give pause and some defense to the eastern coast that the west just doesn't have. We also know that Robb Stark should easily have the men to do this. Since he had to rush south to save his father, which didn't go so well, he was only able to gather half of his army, meaning he should still have about 20,000 men that he can reasonably call upon. So while he's fighting in the south, he should have been gathering a second or even a third army, sending one of them to defend the western coast, as that was the most optimal way for the Lannisters to attack his home soil, as well as maybe using the Manderley fleet to send a third army to start attacking the Crown Lands or any of those areas. And this, of course, has the bonus effect that had Robb done this, the Ironborn fleet would have had, at worst, a much more difficult time attacking the north, and at best, been completely repelled. And there we go. I think that's all the mistakes we really need to cover, and it would put Robb Stark in a pretty strong position to come out on top in this war. Remember though, by fixing some of Robb's early choices, we effectively remove the situations of him making more bad choices. Preventing Theon from treating with Balon means that Robb would likely not break his oath in the moment of grief and lose the phrase. Executing Jaime means he won't be put in a position of the Karstarks packing up and heading out either. Everything after this would be fan fiction writing and coming up with an entirely new scenarios for Robb to deal with. And hey, I did all this in just about, 10 minutes. I wonder why it took these chucklefucks 20 minutes to do the same. Well, let's find out by zipping through the fandom's video and see if I missed anything. Meh, it's an okay video. Couple of small differences, but the broad strokes are the same. While I think, given the knowledge Robb has, trading Jaime for his sisters would be the better choice, we both agree in the end Jaime likely has to die. They also go into a lot more detail about the phrase, talking about how Robb should have had the marriage right then on the spot once the deal was made, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think that changes anything. Walder commits 4,000 men to the war effort after the negotiations are made. He's already putting all his chips on this table. I don't think the marriage changes that, and I don't think this would stop the phrase from stabbing Robb in the back if the tables were turned on him. They also throw the idea out that if the phrase turned it down and showed that they're a little treacherous, this gives Robb justification to take the castle by force, and that is not happening. The twins are a very easily defendable castle. You can't siege it out properly. What with the massive river, that means the other half of the castle can get all the supplies it needs during the siege. But obviously that doesn't matter because time is of the essence, so he would need to attack the castle, and good luck taking a castle that at the moment has 4,000 men with your 20,000. Even if you do take the castle, the losses would be crippling, and justifying it with Robb's a smart guy, he can figure something out, sounds like someone arguing that Batman can beat anyone with enough prep time. I'm sorry, but a major issue is that he doesn't have a lot of prep time. He's in a hurry to save Riverrun. They also bring up the Boltons and how Robb needs to spend those Bolton men's like cash money, which I agree makes sense on paper, but I think actually doing it would prove difficult and also goes against Robb's honor. He would not purposefully have one vassal commit more of their resources to drain and weaken their position. They also talk about sending Catelyn home, which is an idea that in part could prevent some issues, such as freeing Jaime Lannister, which resulted in the Karstarks leaving. You could also say that if she were at Winterfell, she would have prevented Roderick Cassel leaving the castle so lightly defended, which would prevent Theon from taking it. However, we already solved those issues by holding on to Theon and executing Jaime, and we shouldn't discredit she does a decent amount of good advice. Not all the time, but some of it's pretty good. After all, Robb wanted to send Great John Umber to engage Tywin Lannister, and she advised Roose would have been a better choice. And yeah, Roose being a backstabbing bastard, this looks like bad advice, but in the long run, if Robb's able to keep in a position of power where Roose wouldn't be so eager to betray him, it's a better decision than having the Great John lead. Who knows how many more men would have lost their life in that engagement if the Great John was in charge. Yeah, more Lannisters would have died, but Robb needs his men more than Tywin needs his. And finally, they talk about the Baratheons, and saying that even without a formal alliance or truce, Robb was already trying to work with them, even if not officially. I don't think an official agreement between either of the brothers does anything, as mentioned before. Oh, they also bring up Dany, but I could not give less of a shit about Dany if I tried. She's going to be stuck in Essos until we all die of old age. Very surprised they didn't talk about Edmure's engagement with Tywin though, as that to me is arguably Robb's biggest and most obvious mistake. But hey, like I said, you can't expect these guys to be as perfect as I am when making these videos. Hope you all enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more, but until then, stay safe, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.